Welcome to our shir, Parshas Shoftim, Hey Elul. And we are in the midst of Elul and preparing ourselves for the Yom Noraim to come. I'd like to begin with just a Haisafa that Yedidi Rabbi Paul made on last week's shir. If you remember, we spoke about the story of Rabbi Akiva on the Rabbi with the fox and his chaverim and him laughing. And we pointed out about the importance that even as we acknowledge tsar, we move forward in our life with simcha. And it's interesting because that Gemara is on Daf Chav Daled Amud Beis in Makkas, and he pointed out that this is very similar to Masechtas Makkas. Maybe that's why Makkas ends with this, because Makkas deals with obviously people who did Averas and were Chayav Malkus. So therefore we say, even as the person was Chayav Malkus, he shouldn't let that drag him down, but he should end by learning the lesson of Rabbi Akiva to put things in proper perspective and be able to go on with his life with simcha. So I thought that was a very nice ara. Shoftim v'shoftim titin l'cha b'chol shorecha asher Hashem l'kecha naisin l'cha. Make shoftim and shotrim in all of your gates b'chol shorecha. So the Bali Musar especially say that these parshas all are meramis to El. And they tell us that when it says B'chol Shorech, it's not just talking about the physical gates of the city where the Beis Din would meet, but it also means the gates of us, our gates of the person's eyes, his mouth, his ears, the things that our gates that bring things into us. And we have to be cognizant of that. And now is the time during El to do Shoftim v'shoftim titin l'cha b'chol shorecha, to look into all of your gates and make sure that they're pure. Make sure that you didn't talk lashon hara with your mouth. They didn't listen to things you shouldn't listen to with your ears. They didn't see things that you shouldn't see with your eyes. Shoftim v'shoftim l'cha b'chol shorecha. Look at all of the gates, the gate of your heart, to make sure that the wrong machshavas did not come into it, and so on. So I'd like to suggest a little bit of an understanding within that really there's two types of gates. I saw in the Bitachon Weekly a beautiful machshava, and it says, why do birds sing so beautifully? And we know there's an expression, to sing like a bird, right? Birds, they tweet and they sing and they just just seem to be freilich. And if you take a look at animals, it's just the opposite. Animals grunt and they bark and they do all sorts of that different types of noises. Why is that? So he says because the bird is closer to Shemayim, and the closer you are to Shemayim, to the Ruchnius, so the closer you are to sweetness, the closer you are to the Ziskite of Shemayim, to the Ziskite of Shemayim. And that's the difference. So the bird who's close to Shemayim is a sweet tweet, a sweet sound. And the animal who's closer to the ground, his sounds are not such a nice sounds. They're more guttural, they're more earthly, they're more like the ground. And in the same way, he says, very interesting, we make on fruit a bari prioates and a vegetable a bari priodom. And the question is, why don't we just make one brach for everything? And the answer is that they're very different. Because vegetables can be very bitter tasting, the bitter herbs, and you can have they don't have a sweet taste. And fruits have a very sweet taste, a sweet plum, a sweet peach, geschmack. And what's the pshat? The same thing. The fruit grows on the tree. The tree is closer to Shemayim. And because the tree is closer to Shemayim, it has all the sweetness of Shemayim. Whereas the ground is closer to the Gashmias, and therefore it has the bitterness of being Gashmi, being farther from the Rebbeinu Shalom. The farther you get from the Rebbeinu Shalom, the more earthy it is, the more Gashmiistic it is, the less sweet that it is. So we find it by birds and by animals, and we find it by fruits and by vegetables. An incredible, amazing thought. So I was thinking the emphasis in B'chol Shorecha, there are two types of Shorim. There's the upper Shorim and the lower Shorim. The lower Shorim consists of the Gashmias of the person, the taiva for machalos asuras, the taiva for arayas, the taiva, all the different taivas that a person has on a Gashmiistic level, right? The taiva sleep through davening. These are taivas that a person has, and he has to look shayf and shayin b'chol shorecha in all of your gates, and those taivas he has to look on the lower taivas. The Gashmiistic taivas, the vegetable taivas, the animal taivas, that's what we call it, nefesh bahamis. There's also, within us, nefesh bahamis is a nefesh, the behemoth nefesh, which is close to the ground. We know the difference between a person is we stand up straight, so our eyes go up to Shemayim. An animal's head goes downward, so his look goes down to the ground because he's more gashmiistic. And therefore that's the difference. So those are the lower taivas. And then there's the upper taivas. The upper taivas is the Lashon Hara, is the Rechilas, is the Mal B'nei Chavero B'Rabim, is doing the thing, the Avodah Zarah, where the person does chas v'shalom, the wrong things, the dishonesty. All of those things are more in the upper realm, that deal with the things that deal with his higher level machshavas, with the mouth, with the brain, with the face, which has all of the upper level thinking. The brain, the eyes, the ears, the mouth, the nose, those are the upper level. So therefore a person has to say, Shaitan Shem B'chol Sharech, and all of your gates, your upper gates and your lower gates. And those are the ones that we all have to look out to as we're now in El, and we march through El, and we come to the time when we're going to go in front of the Rebbeinu Shalom, the Yimei Adin, and we're going to be ready for it. In our Sedra, one of the most popular things to talk about is Kiseitza Melchama. When the Kohen gathers all of the warriors and he says, listen, you're going to have to be totally focused on Melchama. If you're not focused on Melchama, you can't come. You got to go home. And what are those things that you're focused on Melchama? You got to go home. It says you build a new house, and you're worried that you're going to chas v'shalom die in Melchama, and the next guy's going to live in it. Or you just married a woman with Erison, you didn't yet have Nesuin, you had the first part of marriage, and you're worried that chas v'shalom you'll die and another man will marry her. Or you build a vineyard, and you didn't get a chance to be in it, and another person will come in it, and they'll be there. And therefore you're so genumen with your machshava, you're not going to focus on the war. You're not going to be able to do what you got to do as a soldier. Go home. And the Welt is mamish matmi. Everybody goes with sugar to try and find what's going on over here. Is that what we are? First of all, moving. I met a yid and a Heilige yid, and he told me pshat on this, that you see the people. I told him my word about happiness. He said people can't focus on happiness. They're only focused on this. They're focused on someone will take their things. That's what everybody's worried with. When the person's dead, it doesn't matter. He can't live in the house anyway. He can't be married to the woman anyway. He can't do the vineyard anyway. So the Meforshim are trying to understand what would bother him to the point where he can't go to war. What's that? Dr. Belinsky, a story from a Shach, but first he makes a ha'ara. He says, what's the purpose of Misa? Person Misa is tshuva. Because that's the time when a person is totally serious. He's not thinking about any of his taivas. He's just thinking about his impending demise and coming in front of the Kisei Kovid. He does tshuva. For carrot, even when they would take somebody to Misa for the Arba Misa's Beis Din, Skilas Reib Hereg V'Chenek, and they would take, except Reb Shimon, the other way, and they would take him, and they would say, do tshuva, let your Misa be a kapara for you. So Misa, Chil Hashem, Misa is an amazing thing. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us a tremendous gift in Misa. It's a way of being so serious that we clean up everything we did when our taivas didn't let us think straight. For Kirat, the Gemara says that the worst type of Misa is to die of thirst. Why? Not because of the pain of dying of thirst, but because when a person is dying of thirst, he can't think about tshuva. All he can think about is needing a drink. All he can think about having water. He can't focus. That's why it's so bad, because the purpose of Misa is tshuva. It's a gift from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to enable us to do tshuva. So why is it that a person would be busy with his vineyard still? How is that possible? So he asked this kasha to Shach. So Shach told him in the city of Slutsk there was a Kamsin. He's probably known as a Slutzker Kamsen. Every big city down in the Stetler of Bear Wine once spoke of the Stetler in Europe, like everyone had a Stott Meshuggah there, they had a Stott Talmud Chacham, and never they had a Stott Kamsen. So many stories are written about the Kamsen, the miser. The stories on Ashir you have in our lore about Europe, that the Fard Mulchama, and there was the Kamsen. So this was Slutzker Kamsen. Slutzker Kamsen was Nebuchadnezzar's deathbed. Calls the Chevra Kedisha, and he tells him, he says, listen, I have prepared for myself tachrichim and everything. And they said, okay, where are they? He said, it's in a drawer over there in my room, along with all of my bank books and all my, things that say how much money I have. Okay, fine. So go over to the drawer is locked. So they come back to the Kamsen, they say, Reb Kamsen, the drawer is locked, where's the key? So he says, I have the key under my pillow. Okay, would you like to give us the key? He goes, yeah. So he starts to take the key with shaking hands from under his pillow. And the Chevra Kedisha guy reaches out. At the last second, he pulls it away from him. So he says, what's going on here? Aren't you going to give me the key? He says, Ich kenne es doch meine. I can't give it to you, it's mine. He says, Rav Shach, Yotze Nishmasa b'mayna. His neshama went out with the word mayna. It's mine. See, Zok Rav Shach, that's what a person is. That there are people that in their heart, they are so mayna, that it's theirs, they can't share with another person. It's doch the Yetzirah of mayna. The Yetzirah called mayna, mine. It is so strong that it's going to keep them, even Acher Misa. They can't break a teva. The aside of Musar is amazing. Rabbi Sol Slanter, I think it's Rabbi Sol Slanter, that it's easier to learn Gan Shas than to break a single midah. We are who we are, and changing that is very, very, very hard. Nishta poshet zach. And therefore, if the person was a Kamsen b'chayav, he's not going to suddenly become Ois Kamsen as he dies. Nebuch. It says a Rasha, filo by the gates of Ganem, doesn't do tshuva. He can't. Ekerisht. So what's the answer? What's the answer? The answer is we have to spend our life training ourselves. There's an Indian that people say to give money as a tzedakah, to go and give each time into the pushka money every single day. We train ourselves to give. We have to train ourselves always to give to others, of our money, to give to others of our kaichas, to give to others of our sympathy, to give to others of our, and it's not just money, but it's how we think and how we treat and how we act with other people in such a way that everything's not mina. So I'm sitting with a bunch of people, I can make a joke at somebody's expense, that's a mina issue. If I say Lashon Hora, that's a mina, I'm thinking about myself. We have to overcome and we have to work on the mina, on this issue, because this is one of the fundamental issues of our life, of the ability not to see everything as us, but to ourselves, but to see everything as part of our tzibur, as part of our mishpach, as part of our family, as part of Klal Yisrael. That is our avodah. If we can overcome the mina, then we can be ready to do tshuva. And when we can do tshuva, we come to the Yom Noraim the way we should be, and then we'll truly be singing like a bird. And our tefillahs will be like a bird, because they'll be close to Shemayim, al lebi skabel b'ratzon. Mitzvah Hashem, by all of us, we should all have our tefillahs in skabel b'ratzon, and our tshuva truly accepted, and we should all be zeicha to sing like a bird. Have a good Shabbos.